Hi, I'm Grace Friedman.
Hi, I'm Malkah.
And yeah, together, Malkah and I share postpartum classes, and we care for families with the intention of supporting them to integrate and more fully receive the gifts of one of the greatest transformational experiences of their lives, which is the birth of their children, and also the birth of their family, the birth of them as new individuals, and just changing people. My teacher, Wapio, who's an elder midwife, says that birth can be viewed through many lenses. Some of them are spirituality, science, politics, or some other lenses. But one common thread that weaves each individual's experience together is that birth is always transformational by nature. So an example of this is that maidens transform into mothers, and just like that, the woman who was before is no longer. And there's an undeniable truth to this idea that we can't be the same person we were before when we're born or reborn. And in reality, or the reality is that birth is actually happening every single moment. And some moments are just more obvious, like with the birth of a child, or the birth of all of creation that happens every year in our tradition, in our calendar. So the openness and vulnerability is just as big as it gets in these moments. We know in the birth of a child that a woman is the most open that she can be. And right now in Elul, it's the time where God is in the field, and we're open. He's open, and hopefully we're open with each other. It's beautiful. And so when we pay attention, there's a wellspring of wisdom that we have access to in birth. And this wisdom is what lies in the mysterious unknown, which is just beyond our comfort zone. So from our work with postpartum families, along with much other work that we've done, tending to life, to individuals, children, families, plants, animals, and most importantly, ourselves, we have learned a lot as we witness beautiful transformations, and we want to share something about our insights with you tonight. So our prayer is for all of us to choose life and harness the insights and power that will come from the rebirth of ourselves and all of humanity during the Chagim this year.
Okay, so before we fully dive in, we're going to do a grounding in exercise. This will hopefully allow us to get present and relate to what we will be talking about. So for this grounding in, we're going to just use the breath, largely because the breath is always accessible to us. So, one moment, please, a life interruption, live. Okay, thank you. So if you're able to and you feel safe, you can close your eyes. And I want you to just notice what sensations you can feel in your body. Notice your environment. Even if your eyes are closed, you can still notice. And just feel how you're feeling right now. So together, we're going to take some breaths. So starting at the bottom of our breath, we're going to take a nice big inhale together. Pausing for a moment at the top. And a nice big deep exhale, releasing all the air we can from our lungs. Again, a nice deep inhale, filling our lungs, expanding. When we reach the top, we cascade back down, contracting our lungs into a nice deep exhale. One last big inhale together, filling, expanding our lungs. And a final deep exhale with a sigh. Now just find your breath. Return to your natural way of breathing. And from here, again, notice how you feel. Anything has shifted, your mind, your body, your emotions, etc. Just notice, and when you're ready, we'll open our eyes and continue. Okay. So, what is birth? What is really happening when we're birthing a child or rebirthing ourselves or birthing every moment? And how can we really be conscious of this process? So our teacher and Rabbi Hoffman has taught us, and we're sure this comes from many other wise sources as well, that Hashem's name both represents presence and the birth process. So in Hebrew, there is no way to express to be in the present. There is no I am or he is. It just doesn't exist in the language, but what we do have to express it is God's name, is the specifically Yud Ke Vav Ke. This is as close as we get to the word for presence. And it's not just any kind of presence, it's presence without interruption, judgment, manipulation. It's presence from a point of silence and acceptance. And we see the birth process through Hashem's name if we look at the shape of the letters. So Yud, being like a point, is the point of conception. Hey, broadening outward, represents the womb, the pregnant womb, expanded. And again, we have a sort of contraction in the letter Vav, which represents the birth canal, just like the letter, long and narrow. And then again, we have the letter Hey, which once again is expanded, and this is birth, coming into the world. So we can see through this that God's name being both a representation or literally being presence and representing the birth process, we see that every single moment actually is a birth process. So how do we become aware of this and what is happening so that we can make a choice? And what exactly is the choice? So we see in Dvarim that we have in Deuteronomy, that we have a commandment to choose life. So we know that this is a world of choice. Hashem made sure to create a world with perfect balance of good and evil, of life and death, and this is what allows us free will. So the lines that we're bringing from Dvarim are ראה נתתי לפניך היום את החיים ואת הטוב, ואת המוות ואת הרע. See, I place before you today life and good, death and evil. It continues to talk about choosing mitzvot and how that is what will lead us to everything Hashem is promising us, which is thriving, which is offspring, which is a land to live in, prosperity, all these wonderful things by doing mitzvot. And then there's another line we want to share with you. Ha'idoti bachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz, החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך, הברכה והקללה. ובחרת בחיים למען תחיה אתה וזרעך. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life if you and your offspring should live. So here we also see bringing in the concept of our offspring, that these choices aren't just for us, but they're for what we birth and what we bring into the future. And also the languaging really reminds us of what we're praying for on Rosh Hashanah and in this time, that we be maybe sealed in the book of life. This is the ultimate prayer, one could say, for this time. So in this lovely world of paradox that we live in, we have these two natural forces. Well, we have many, but we're going to talk about the concepts of good and evil a little bit. So good and evil are really just two natural forces that are coexisting together. From a certain perspective, they're both completely benign in a sense and need each other for their existence. So let alone either of these forces will just gravitate in their natural direction. Good will beget more good, evil will beget more evil. And we can sort of see this illustrated in a line from Perkel, which says, mitzvah goreret mitzvah, ve'avera goreret avera. Mitzvah leads, a commandment leads to another commandment, and a transgression leads to another transgression. Feeding into these processes together, or the mitzvah in the direction of mitzvah and the transgression in the direction of transgression. So with that said, we notice that there are a lot of things we might be doing that might be potentially for our evil or potentially for our good, for life or for death, but we're not necessarily conscious of them yet. So we're going to continue explaining and answering the question, how do we become conscious of our good and our evil so that we can have an actual choice? And the simple answer we're going to give right now is that we slow down. And I continue to explain what that means.
So Einstein says it like this: we can't solve problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And Einstein he happened to be a master at thinking differently and solving problems. He was even perhaps one of a kind. So yeah, this may be a nice idea. What does it mean to change your thinking? Can we even do that if we're not Einstein? And yeah, I'm just going to explain this a little further with the Baal Shem Tov also said this in another way, another mastermind, in fact. He said it a little more simply, possibly, that wherever you are, wherever your thoughts are, there you are. So we also know that Rabbi Nachman expanded on this idea and spoke about always being in a state of joy. And he said, if you're depressed, the only thing you should do, that you need to do, is just get joyful again, because you can't solve your problems from a state of depression. And somehow either you solve them or they are naturally resolved in this state of joy. And we should always be aiming to be in a state of joy all the time. And I don't think joy means having no sadness. Joy isn't an emotion, it's actually a state of being. So happiness is an emotion, sadness is an emotion, and all of those can happen in a state of joy, which is, I think, an appreciation of all that is. So another mastermind who's one of my teachers, who explains it through the lens of yoga nidra, which is the yoga of sleep, or the yoga of bringing awareness to our slowed down, deeper states, is he says that every problem that ever existed has the same root. And that root is the thought that this moment isn't good enough, which I think is something like what Rabbi Nachman's talking about when we're in a state of depression. It's this isn't good enough. And in joy, this is all good enough. Good enough. So what does it mean to change our state of thinking and be in a state of joy? To change our thinking. So there's a scientific explanation for this, which Wapio, who's one of my dear teachers and elder midwives who we mentioned before, when she explained this to me, it just brought everything together for me. It was like, aha, that's what we're doing when we're singing, praying, meditating, doing dream work, basically doing anything that brings us more into a state of joy and out of our problems. And that's this. It's that we have 4 main brainwave states. And the first one, which is where the thinking is faster and is beta. And then the next one, where the thinking slows down a little bit, is called alpha. And then when it slows down even more, we get into theta and then delta. And so the way she explains it is that when we're in beta, we're in our thinking mind. That's where problems can exist. That's where our mind is going fast, very fast. It's, it's hard to catch a breath there or see much more than whatever we're thinking about. And in alpha, it's when our brainwaves slow down a little bit and there's more spaciousness. And it's when we're more in an emotional state. So instead of thinking, it's we're in our emotions and we're creative and we're doing art and creating and feeling and just being a little bit slower. And then when we drop down into theta, it's when our personality is still a little bit there, but it's really, the brainwaves are much slower and there's way more spaciousness between each circling wave. And then in delta, there's it's very spacious. The brainwaves are very slow. And usually we only get to theta and delta when we're sleeping in deep sleep. And the way Wapio says it is that, sure, maybe a Buddhist monk who meditates all day long, every single day, spends some time in theta in the waking state. But it takes practice and devotion to choosing that. Although it's here, and this is the soul level of our thinking. And this is where we really know. Instead of thinking things and really creating more problems, probably, or feeling things. And that's a good place to be, but it's really a bridge into this soul level knowing where thinking and feeling are more out of the way, and we can really, really experience what's the answer to our prayers. It's really a deep connection with the divine, with our soul. So the birth process itself is an opportunity to drop into these states. And we can look at it with the birth of a baby, or even just in anything we've ever done before. It's like there's this thinking phase where we're like, oh, let's put this here, let's do that, let's, all these things. And then at some point, it's like the metaphor of climbing a mountain. We're walking across the field, we're like, this is easy, kind of fun, like we're thinking about it all. And then we sort of hit the base of the mountain, and then we start to feel it. And we drop in, and our breath gets a little deeper, and we're climbing the mountain. And this is happening in birth too. And then we hit a point where maybe the thinking brain comes back in because we stop climbing and we're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Someone carry me to the top. But actually, that's the moment where we can harness our power and harness like the infinite power and wisdom of our soul. And we keep going, and we learn something new, and we transform. There's something in there where the mind drops out of the way and the feelings drop out of the way, and we finish climbing that mountain, and we give birth to that baby. We give birth to ourselves. And I really love this idea about the brainwave states because it helped me realize why all these things I love so much are so important. And one hopefully short story about myself is just one way I've chosen to do this in my life is by doing vision quests. And it was a 4-year commitment where I committed for 4 years in a row to sit and fast from speech, food, and water for 4 days and 4 nights alone, completely with nothing but a sleeping bag, out in nature. And what I think made this possible too was the support. There was a whole group of people praying for me and the other people doing it with me the entire time. And what happened in these processes was like, at first, when you don't have food, you don't have water, you can't leave your spot, you're just alone, your mind goes wild and everything comes up. And then at some point, for me at least, I'll get all the emotions will then come, and I'm angry, and I'm just cry, or it's just whatever. Even sometimes it's for myself, for how hard it is, and then something cracks, and all of a sudden I get back, like my vision is clarified, and I get back and I'm like, oh, everything's okay again. And there's always been profound gems there. I've been able to meet my mom who passed away a long time ago. I've been able to meet myself as a mother. I've been able to see what I need to do next in my life. And it's really amazing to have these experiences. And that's what I hope to help be a vessel for in this world. So I'm glad to share it here. I have a song, although Malkah, do you want to? Malkah was my supporter this year at my Vision Quest, and it was beautiful to know her process as a supporter in prayer for others.
Yeah, time-wise, we have time for a song or a story. How do you feel? Should we just jump into both?
I don't know.
Okay, well, let me try and tell this story as quick as possible, just so we can honor the time that we actually have here, and hopefully we'll get to hear Grace sing. So I was her supporter this final year of her Vision Quest, and I said yes, really committed to this, because I really care about grace, and I really care about this process, and I really wanted to witness it myself. And at the same time, I felt completely incompetent. I had zero self-esteem that I could possibly support Grace on this quest that I feel like I know nothing about, even though I've heard her talk about it many times. And I showed up anyways, and I found this wonderful community of supporters. It was the Vision Quest people over in nature on the mountain, and all of us supporters in this little community that we formed for like 5 days together, but felt totally connected. And together we kept the fire, we prayed, we did sweat lodge, we ate meals, we were in nature camping out ourselves. And every time this came up for me, this I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I made the decision to keep going. I thought I was going to die in the sweat lodge. I did not die, and I kept going. I chose to keep praying, even though I felt like I had no idea how to. I chose to be honest and share what was going on with people there, and I found incredible reflections from them about me and what it's like to be around me. And that was really the most transformational part of it, was really seeing how I can be viewing myself in this one really limited way that felt awful, honestly. And then through community, through prayer, through ritual, come out of it seeing myself in a true light and actually understanding that I absolutely did what I said I would do. And I did support Grace through my prayer and through my presence. And it really allowed me a new reflection of myself that was more whole than what I had before, honestly.
So I just think that also a point that I want to like wrap up with is that when we're rebirthing ourselves in this holiday, in this Chagim season, or giving birth in any way, that it's the way that we can tap into these deeper states of consciousness is when we're safe, when we feel safe. And we can't do it alone. I mean, we can give birth alone and be safe. Some people do that, and also there's always like someone on the outskirts supporting them. There's in order for us to really flourish, we have to do it together. And I really want to bless us with that we can be grateful for our community and feel safe and really drop in with each other and give birth to ourselves anew and witness the transformation and choose life and be sealed in the book of life, this right now and always. So
Amen. And also it's true that you don't need to go on a vision quest to do this. That's part of why we did a little breath meditation in the beginning. It really is available all the time in many different ways. So may we also be blessed to find our way to channel the divine and be with God, really both in heaven and on earth, bringing ourselves to God and bringing God down to us.
Thank you. Oh, if you want to know more about what Malkah and I do, we do birth processing. We do postpartum planning, postpartum care, birth planning, all sorts of things, just so you can create that vessel of safety. And you can find us on her Royal Remedies page for now, and we'll have more to come for contacting. But thank you all.
Thank you for being. Shana Tova, Gemar Chatima Tova.